Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, we'll be looking at a topic titled Work Without Borders, Remote Talent Management. Work Without Borders, Remote Talent Management. Today, we have the privilege and honor of hosting as our facilitator for tonight, Buki Olukoga. I will read about her briefly so that some of us can get to know her better. Buki is currently the Commercial Senior Human Resource Business Partner at British American Tobacco, BAT, for West and Central African area. In her current role, she articulates and leads the people strategy to ensure business goals are delivered. She is an experienced HR, around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all the HR value chain with over 18 years cumulative experience that ranges from the telecoms, banking, and tobacco manufacturing industries, where she has built a rewarding career, leaving indelible footprints across the roles from facility manager, HR shared service manager, payroll manager, HR VP outsourcing, talent and organizational effectiveness, and recently HR business partner, East and Southern Africa. She is a strategic thinker with a proven track record of developing and organizing major projects in the HR space and for the organization. All right, because of time, she's an excellent communicator and collaborator who is able to build and maintain strong relationship with key stakeholders. Buki is a resilient and agile personality, can well be described on the back of an intriguing educational and career foundation, in microbiology and facility management, respectively. While changing lanes, Buki has gone through many self-defining moments which have shaped her outlook on life. She holds a master's in industrial and labor relations from the University of Lagos, Nigeria, and a Bachelor of Science from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. She is a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria and a council member of the Nigerian Britain Association. Very unapologetic about the use of our time, Buki aims to fulfill our moments with things that matter. For example, hanging out with loved ones. We qualify tonight, she's spending time with us. Reading fictional medieval novels and learning to speak French. Buki is married and lives with her husband in Nigeria. Welcome, madam. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, that was a mouthful. Thank you very much, Mr. Luyemi, and good evening, everyone. I mean, depending on the side of the world you're in, I would say good day to everybody. I mean, we're in a world of remote work. I remember when I was contacted regarding this session. I mean, it sounded like, oh, it's a walk in the park. But as I prepared for it, I realized that there was so much involved in this whole, should I say, topic. First of all, it made me kind of introspect. And I would say this because I started thinking about, okay, when did I actually get exposed to remote working? And the reality is that I found that it's really been happening most of my career life, but particularly in 2011 when I joined British American Tobacco 2010, but particularly 2011 when I became the head of payroll and admin for West Africa, and that meant I had a number of my team members outside Nigeria and even outside Lagos. And it was quite a daunting task, trying to juggle, the reality of ensuring that the people who were not working closely with me or in the same building with me did not feel, should I say, left out of the whole equation. And I mean, being a very young manager then, I'll be sincere, it was quite challenging. I mean, over the years, I've also been HR business partner, talent manager to different people from, I mean, across the world. Particularly right now, interestingly, or should I say, in a couple of weeks, I will be taking a new role um, that requires remote work. And, it got me asking a number of questions. So today, I would not just be talking from the perspective of an HR professional, but I would also be speaking from the perspective of an employee. So please, I mean, come with me on this journey. What I've tried to do is make it as, should I say, non-academical as possible, but at the same time, as should I say, strategic as possible, so that it can help us, as we go through this journey. And please, as you think about questions or comments, please put them down. And towards at the end of this discussion, we would have the opportunity to ask questions or share comments. And please remember, I'm speaking from my perspective, from my experience. So yeah, I mean, I welcome your suggestions also. Look, the reality is that I would say, as we go on this journey, welcome to the era of work without borders. So you call it remote working, call it anything. The reality is that productivity and wearing pajamas now coexist happily. So there was a time where you had to have your suit, you had to look formal, go to work. I mean, depending on where you work. But I mean, nowadays, and we find that a number of us have to look very corporate. I mean, you find yourself, you look corporate upwards, and then you are very casual, or or even very playful, on the other side of your body or even your environment. And the reality is that our daily commute also consists of, at times, just a short walk from your bedroom to your home office or your desk or your dining table and all. And again, I say, depending on where you work. So today, we find that we're going into the world of remote talent management, where geography is no longer important and productivity has no limits. So I would say get ready for a journey into the workplace of the future, or rather the workplace of now, because the future is here, right? Where location is no longer an impediment and can be used as a canvas for talent without bounds. So I'll tell you what to expect there. Please let me know at any point in time if you cannot see, if I'm not moving, I mean, again, it's remote work. So let me a bit of what to expect as we go, I mean, over the next couple of minutes or next hour. Again, I said I was preparing for this and it got me really thinking about my experience and, again, the future. And I asked myself a number of questions like, how far back did remote work start? I also had this moment of reflection about at what point in my career did I actually start working remotely? And I'm sure a number of us, as we have this conversation, will be asking ourselves the same questions, or even be asking ourselves the questions of at what point will I start working remotely? But whatever situation you find yourself, this call is for you because this is our reality now. It's the world of work. So, and these are some of the points we'll be discussing today. Today, I would ask you to join me to unlock the secrets of remote talent management. We will chart the course from what remote talent management means, what it is, and also look at the tools which will enable us succeed. So, I mean, without wasting further time, I'll say let's dive into a world where talent thrives beyond office walls. So let's go, guys. And please, I know that there are different generations here. So this is not about generations, but I would like to tell you a simple story. For those of us who have been around a bit and who maybe are TV buffs, you probably would recognize this picture here. In 2009, a 47-year-old woman, unemployed woman from a very small village in Scotland, walked onto the stage of one of the world's biggest talent shows, Britain's Got Talent. I recall vividly the jest and the sneakers in the hall. And by the way, in many of our homes, because it was happening in mine also, where this seemingly ordinary plain woman appeared on stage. Everyone was waiting to have a good laugh. We had all sort of comic characters coming on stage, and we had good talents too. However, this woman shocked the world. From the moment she sang her first note till the very last, I recall I stood up in my sitting room and I recall that there was a standing ovation of over 100. I mean, I can imagine how many homes. And beyond that, there was over 100 million views also, just to applaud this woman for the precious gift she gave us that day. And she told us something. She was anything but ordinary. Now you're wondering where I'm going, right? Fast forward to after the show. She has since blossomed. And please feel free to go look Susan Boyle up if you do not know her. She has since blossomed, changed her look, sold over 400,000 copies of her first album, same year, by the way. So you can imagine how many more she sold. And also a particular publication reveals her net worth to be over $35 million. And this was about 5 years ago. And she's still singing and now even featuring in some Hollywood movies. So guys, please feel free to check her. But not to digress. Susan, who sang in a bathroom for 35 years, had a mother who saw and believed in her extraordinary talent and encouraged her to enter for that show. Unfortunately, her mother wasn't there, but she had groomed her for that moment. Also, she had a voice coach and still has a voice coach anyway, who trained her and stood by her through the low moments and also, of course, the high moments when the paparazzi came. What am I trying to say here? Bringing it to the organizational context. This is talent management. And you'll probably ask me, what has Susan's story got to do with talent management? So let's go. For us to speak about remote talent management, we need to start from the basics, right? Let's go. So talent management framework, we're going to bring this Susan story to the organizational context. Talent management is simply the strategy by which organizations attract, retain, develop, and maximize the skills and abilities of their employees. So it involves identifying and nurturing high potential individuals while ensuring that the right people are in the right roles to achieve the company's goal. At its core, talent management is about recognizing that employees are a valuable asset and investing in them accordingly. So if you remember the story I told you about Susan Boyle, someone recognized the talent, someone identified the talent, whether you want to talk about at home or on the stage. Someone nurtured the talent. I think it was O'Neill or something, the coach. And this is exactly what talent management is about. And this slide you're seeing now depicts the the most fundamental of the talent management framework. However, it's not extensive, by the way. In the world of work, I remember personnel management to HR management, and now the world of work, things keep revolving and changing. But depending on the maturity of an organization, you may find more elements such as onboarding, DE&I, and much more, and we'll talk about that later. But the most important thing is like Susan Boyle's story. Talent management involves finding untapped potential, investing in it, developing and encouraging the talent to bring out the best in the team, in them. As business leaders and HR professionals, do not forget that the exceptional talent may arise from unexpected sources, from the with the correct encouragement and development. So now that we've laid the foundation of what talent management is, let's go a step further and discuss remote talent management. So what is remote talent management? So by the way, guys, just to say this, I speak very fast, so I'm really taking this slowly so that we all can go on this journey. So if remote work, so we start from remote work. I like to start from, let's explain it to the 6-year-old so that we all get it. So we're asking now, what is remote talent management? And we have spoken about what talent management is, right? So let's go to what remote work is. It's, call it whatever you want to call it, but it's about telecommuting. It's about, you can call it teleworking, You can call it work from home, you can call it hybrid work, whatever terminology you use, it is the practice of working from one's home or a remote space or another space other than the office. So, what is remote talent management? I can bet it already, some of you already answering where you are or thinking. So your guess is most likely correct. Simply add the word remote or virtual to everything we had explained about talent management. So, for instance, remote talent acquisition is basically identifying and recruiting remote employees with the skills and qualities required for remote work. Now, unfortunately, it's not as easy as that. It sounds really simple, right? Remote talent management and talent management basically have a number of different requirements. Remote talent management entails a huge change to the way people do business. And I'm sure some of you are already thinking about, the days when you will walk into a place to buy something, and now that you can sit where you are and order. Do you honestly think the guys who were selling when people walked in and the guys who are selling now where people order, do you think the process is the same? Absolutely not. From massive changes to investment in technology, office spaces, salary structure, and much more, to accommodate newly introduced benefits, to soft but very critical topics like culture, working hours, and so on, remote talent management is a big deal. And it is not your traditional talent management. So currently, I work with people I never imagined I would work with. I mean, people I only saw in Hollywood movies or Bollywood movies or K-drama. For those of us that love movies, yeah, I still find some time to, watch movies and relax. So I work with people from across Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa. I've got team members whom I'm likely never going to meet. But yet, guess what, guys? We work together to deliver exceptional business results. So it's not that easy and straightforward. Oh no, it isn't. But we find a way to make it work. And I'll share some of this with you. And that's why we're talking about remote talent management today. So anyway, before we go off into the semantics of remote working, the dependencies, let's take a step back to understand the change imperative for remote talent management. So I hope you guys are still with me on this journey. When you look at the screen, what do you see? You see some very old looking phones. By the way, there are so many more grand pictures of phones, and some of us have seen the old ones in some museums. But what you should be seeing on this screen is change. Change always seems like it is new and going faster all of the time. Yet, history is full of stories of non-stop change. So, which means change is part of our lives. From machines to fashion, to shopping, to religion, to whatever it is you want to call it. So let's look at a tool we're all familiar with, and that's why I'm using this analogy, the telephone. From the very manual, scarce, large machines. I remember then you had the telephone booths. I'd always been curious about getting into one, but I only went as far as I'm taking a picture in front of one. To the very mobile, available, handy devices that we all now carry around. The reality is that no matter what it is, the bottom line is that many of us are faced with change. That real or imaginary has very real effect on our lives. Technology and science continue to revolutionize how we work. And if this is happening to products and services, then our processes are not left out. And that is where remote talent management meets change. It's about survival. How do you ensure that you have a sustainable business, a sustainable workforce? Are you still doing your should I say talent planning, succession planning the same way? It's about competitive advantage. How do you stay ahead of the game? And how do you ensure that people still want to work with you, that you're attracting the right talent in this time and age? It's about innovation. Still want to do things the same way? And we'll talk a bit about this. It's also about accessibility. How do you reach the new workforce? I'm not going to tell you some of the stories I've had, with trying to interview some people, and then some managers were still saying, I want the person to come into the office. And I was like, no, it doesn't work like that anymore. Get used to it. Let's have this conversation. You attend remote meetings. Oh, you can't read the person any better than if the person is, on a video call. So what's it? We need to change. I mean, let's look at, for those of us in Nigeria, look at the price of fuel. Are you still going to insist for all your should I say candidates to come in? Or are you going to start thinking about how to do remote recruitment, remote assessment? I do respect the fact that we all have, we work in different fields and we work in different companies, and the requirements of our works differ. And even the sizes of this companies also differ. But again, we'll speak about that. You also need to know what exactly is applicable to your space. And we'll talk about productivity in a bit. So, like I said, as products, goods, and services change, the lives of the people behind them also change. Therefore, one may say remote talent management has evolved alongside technological advancements, adapting to accommodate a workforce no longer confined by office walls. Last month, and I say, and again, I say it with all due respect, we all work in different functions or departments or units, and we work in different organizations. Of course, if you work in manufacturing, definitely you need to be there most of the time. The nature of my work, I work with, like I said, I have teams all over different countries in West Africa and of course in other countries. And there was a time this year that I did not step into the office building for 5 weeks. And I know some of us work fully remotely, by the way. I mean, I remember there is this gentleman who works with me on some of the talent plans we have within the business. I've worked with him now for about 3 years. I've never met him, but we have, should I say, made magic together. And that's work. It's about responsibility. Remember, I said something. I'm going to speak from the side of HR, and I'm going to speak from the side of the talent. That's the employees, because we all are employees anyway. And I know that there's the Japa syndrome also. And by the way, some people are physically here, but they have, should I say, work-wise Japad. That means they are working remotely. But again, let's just come back to where we are. So from its early stages in telecommuting to the global digital nomadism of today, it reflects a transformative journey in how we attract, how we develop, and how we retain talent in a borderless world. The evolution of remote work, and by extension, remote talent management, has been a remarkable journey. Remember, I told you about how I started reflecting at what point did I get exposed to remote work? And this is shaped by technological advancements and changing work dynamics. The world of remote work and, of course, remote talent management began with modest origins. Primarily back then in the 70s. I mean, I wasn't working in the 70s. Well, literally not born then, but again, don't try and guess my age. But primarily, it started as telecommuting. You would travel. I mean, then we'll have parents or uncles travel, on an aircraft or whatever to get some work done. Once in a while, they use fax and all this stuff. And there were very few select people, especially in the advanced world, who could work from home occasionally. The true turning point came for all of us with the widespread adoption of the internet in the 1990s. Don't worry, we'll get to the COVID stage. So, email, instant messaging, early collaboration tools paved the way for remote work to gain traction. However, it was still limited to certain professions. Let's fast forward to the 2010s. The digital nomadism emerged as a trend. So individuals began working remotely while traveling the world, highlighting the potential for remote work to transcend beyond geographical boundaries. And then, boom, COVID-19 came. The pandemic that woke the world, literally accelerated the world 4 years. within a short while. And it forced organizations worldwide to adapt rapidly. I remember a number of policies we were working on back then about flexi work and all. Even though I worked for a multinational, we had, should I say, we had a flexi work arrangements, but it was still very conservative. But with the advent of COVID-19, remote work became a necessity, pushing many companies to embrace it fully. This evolution has reshaped the work landscape, proving that work isn't a place anymore. And I know some people are saying an amen to that, I believe. It is an activity that can happen anywhere. And this means the conditions surrounding it must what? Change. Let's look at what people are saying. And by the way, I literally went down a rabbit hole when I was getting ready for this particular um, slide. There was so much to consume in terms of the current trends in remote work. One thing I refrained from is the whole idea of talking about companies and all. Again, I would only speak about what I know, and so I'm not going to really cite examples from different organizations as much as possible, because again, everything is changing overnight. I mean, performance management, everything is changing. So let's talk about the current trends in remote work. So remote work trends continue to shape the modern workforce. We've got hybrid work models where employees split their time between the office and remote locations, and this is gaining popularity. So currently where I work, you can work 3 days from the office, 2 from home, or you could even stretch it. And in some of our locations, it's full hybrid. I know people who haven't been into the office locations this year. We also have flexible work schedules that allow individuals to better balance their professional and their personal lives. I like to put it like that. So just a moment. Just want to be sure that you all can see this here. So it allows people to balance the whole idea of their professional and their personal lives. So we've got remote job opportunities, which have expanded across industries, offering more diverse roles than ever before. I mean, this year alone, there are some new roles that have been created where I work, but not just this year, since the pandemic, roles that we never knew existed. And we'll talk a bit about location agnostic roles. So with this, you need technology innovations such as virtual reality meetings like we're having now. I mean, this is a Saturday. Normally, a number of us are at one bed or the other. I remember today, and I'm going to say this. So earlier today, before coming back home to prepare for this meeting, I needed to get an outfit for one of my sisters. Guess what, guys? So number one, we're working across different time zones. So it's nighttime at that place. And then I was in the shop. I saw the outfits. I put them out and I just did a video immediately. So the first thing I did was, oh, sorry, because she was in bed. I mean, it was middle of the night there. But since she had asked me to do it and the time frame was very short, I had to do the video quickly and she selected it. And this is what we're talking about. So imagine if I was a personal shopper. That means I don't need to take pictures, then send or whatever. We do immediate video and that's it. So reality is that remote job opportunities have expanded across industries. I mean, we've got or brand, but we've got so many remote job opportunities online, and you find people moonlighting, guys. And that's where we begin to think about what are our policies and how do we need to start addressing them. And we'll still speak a bit about that. So people are offering more diverse roles than ever before. Technology innovations such as virtual reality meeting, advanced project management tools, enhanced remote collaboration. We all started from some teleconferencing and different kind of virtual meetings, and a number of us are on Teams and so many others now. And hey, we're on Zoom here. There was a time you couldn't really share. Now you can share. There was a time you couldn't speak on some of those platforms, but now you can speak. So a lot is changing, and companies are emphasizing employee well-being. Now another sensitive issue, right? And we'll speak a bit about that. By offering mental health resources and encouraging physical activity during work hours. I know that some of our meetings, we kind of do some stretch, everybody get up, turn your cameras on, do this, clap your hands, do this, because we want people to remember to move. So as the workforce evolves, these trends demonstrate the enduring impact of remote work on the way we work and live. So again, I'll speak down to, so we have everybody saying different things. I mean, some businesses haven't evolved or changed yet, and it is understandable. I mean, if it's not working for them at this point, it's understandable. Some manufacturing companies that do shift are beginning to look at what are the alternatives. How can they make things better and leverage some of these tools? So, for instance, I know an organization typically they fly in technicians to fix their machines. Now they are beginning to so instead of buying all the expensive flight tickets, bringing people in, putting them in hotels, paying a lot for security, you know, and now what are they doing? They get on video calls, and then the technicians tell them what to do with the machines, and within a few hours or minutes call, they're done. Flight expense gone, accommodation expense gone, security expense gone. And this shows you that the world is changing. There are a number of stats you see here, and there are so many, so many more online that tells you that tells you a key message, and that is that more and more people want a world where they have flexibility. More and more companies are having to invest in the change that we now live in. Yeah, and companies are now having to spend more on work from home. Some colleagues who say, oh, productivity has dropped and blah, blah. And, I ask myself some questions. How are you managing your talent in the world in which we live now? In some organizations, productivity has increased. With my team, I tell them, even for those who are here with me in Lagos, I tell them, I don't need to see you, just do your job. And again, I've had to adapt some of the other talent management techniques to ensure that, they are still focused on the job and are delivering. And we'll talk about this in a bit. But let's discuss a bit more about, what's happening with talent management, remote talent management. We agreed, or I would say I mentioned, that it's crucial in today's dynamic work landscape. It empowers organizations to harness global talent. And this is me advocating for remote talent management, especially for my colleagues here in Nigeria, by the way. The reality is that it involves us adapting. And when I say us now, organizations, HR professionals, adapting our policies, our processes, our work environment to the changing workforce expectations. What are your reward policies or architecture? What kind of benefits are you offering? You need to start thinking about that if you aren't doing that also. Also, we're able to maintain productivity in both the remote and hybrid work environments. So really effective remote talent management enhances employee engagement. It fosters skill development and ensures a cohesive organizational culture, irrespective of geographic locations. Look, the reality is that whether you live, whether we are working in the same location or not, if our values are different, they will be different. And that's where you have all the conflicts. So, whether it's physical or virtual, as long as everybody makes an effort, then you're able to have the right culture you want. Moreover, in an era of increased remote work, it has become a strategic imperative for companies, for HR professionals, aiming to attract and retain top talent while remaining competitive and agile in a rapidly evolving business landscape. And I'll tell you this, recently we were discussing the internship program. So we have this project going on and we were discussing the internship program. And we realized that we were getting the same kind of people, but we wanted a different skill set. And we had to take a step back and revisit our internship program, the policy, the process, the recruitment approach, the benefits, and even the pay. That's an internship program. And the moment we did that, we got the answer we needed. So different results. And that's why before I how, let's talk a bit about some of the challenges and some of the benefits. So there are so many, but I decided to pick these top ones, which speak to my experience. So I did a list of my experience, and based on my experience, I did a list of challenges and benefits, and so that then it helps us carve our strategy. I always say something: if you don't know the problem statement, if you don't know the root cause, then your strategy might as well go down the drain. So let's talk about some of the challenges. Why do some of us resist remote working? I'm not now again. I'm not talking about your company structure and all. I'm talking about if that opportunity exists. What are some of the reservations business managers, HR people have? There's communication barrier. So really, and I'm going to be very open here, by the way. There are times where it could be the language, the intonation, it could be the cultural difference. Remember, I spoke about that. It could be you misinterpreting the body language. And of course, there's also the feeling of isolation. And we will talk a bit about some of the strategies we need to put in place. Sometime in 2018, and I had this discussion with a colleague who was also involved back then. We had this discussion recently, a couple of weeks ago, and we had a good laugh, by the way. So in 2018, I had the opportunity to work with some of my colleagues in another part of Africa, East Africa precisely. And for those of you who have related with people outside Nigeria, I mean, there are other cultures where they speak loudly like us, right? But the reality is that, I mean, a number of some of our neighbors think we really speak very loudly, and that can be termed as aggression. Also, some of us are not very self-aware of our body language and what impact it might have on others. And I recall that we needed to do a project together. We had some calls virtually, and then I had the opportunity to go in there to now kind of close out the project. And what did I find? I felt the reception was very cold. I felt, you know, that I wasn't wanted in the room. And I mean, of course, you know how this kind of affects the rest of the project, right? And I'm telling you my own real life example. And if there was any mistake I made, I didn't speak about it. Remember, we're talking about communication barriers. I did not tell anybody about how I felt. I just decided to finish whatever I had to do and leave the place. And then, fast forward so many years after, I was talking to one of my colleagues there, and we were working on a project together, and we're having a good laugh, we're having a nice time. And I said, by the way, this is so refreshing. I remember back then, 2018, and she said, oh my God, is that how you felt? That we felt you came in, you wanted to be the boss of us, you wanted to show us what you're made of. And guys, guess what? It was the intonation, the body language. We know we can gesticulate in Nigeria. Nigerians, we gesticulate a lot. And so they felt it was aggression. Meanwhile, I felt the quiet, you know, responses was passive aggression. At the end of the day, it was just basically difference in our cultural stance. And if you ask me, one of the lessons I took from that is if you have to work with someone who isn't your regular Joe, if I may put it like that, you have a responsibility to do a bit of research. There are so many resources online that tell you about how to relate with people remotely. And this also transcends even the facilities we have. So up until recently, and when I say recently, now a couple of years ago, it was a challenge for me having calls. Again, still talking about communication barriers. Technology was a big deal for me working from here. I mean, if up until now, I still have like 4 different service providers, always as backup in case something happens. Let's move forward. There's also the bit around monitoring and productivity. So we spoke about how it can be a disadvantage, but I also tell you, about how it can be an advantage, how productivity can be an advantage, since you don't have to spend, especially for those of us who live in Lagos, we don't have to spend so many hours traveling. So here I am. I can decide to wake up at 7 o'clock. If I decide to grab breakfast, I will have breakfast, do 1 or 2 other things, and be ready to be at my desk at 8, if my day starts at 8. However, when I had to go in, I had to travel about 2 hours. So I stay on the mainland and my office has been on the island. And guess what? I had to travel hours to get to work. So which meant I had to wake up at dawn, already tired. So by the time I'm getting to the office on Third Mainland Bridge and everything, excuse me. By the time I'm getting to the office, I'm already worn out. And so tell me, how productive can I be in that office? And then when it's time to leave again, I get into another 2 hours plus. So when I do plus or minus, I'm not talking about 5 hours plus in traffic every day. Now you can tell me, well, there are houses on the island, move there. But again, it's my personal preference to be here on the mainland. But the reality is that if I look at that versus now, where 3-4 days a week I work from home, I have better quality of life. But there are challenges, and I do agree. I cannot pretend I'm not cognizant of the fact that we have productivity issues, because again, have I had team members who went AWOL and you are trying to reach them during office hours and you can't reach them? I've had those who tell me, "Oh, I'm in traffic. I went to quickly get something," and I'm thinking, it's office hours. You went to quickly get something, but again, that's one of the many challenges. There's also security concerns, and when we talk about security, we are talking about data security. There was an experience I had where I needed to do something. I was out of town and I needed to submit a report, and I needed to log in. I was having connectivity issues, and I decided to test a connection, and this was some time back. And it almost landed me in trouble because, again, I did not know that the network was porous. There's also the bit around if you're attending meetings, depending on where you are attending the meetings, there's the issue of possible risk in terms of information. So, for instance, imagine you're a payroll person and you're working from home, and then you have people's salaries and all, or you're working from a friend's place or an open place. And there's the argument, by the way, and we can get into that some other day over drinks or whatever. Do I really need to work from home? Remote work means I can work from anywhere, but again, it poses some security concerns. There's also the bit around where do we find the balance between remote working and actual rapport, building relationships, and fostering teamwork that comes from that in-person interactions. We talk about the place of team building. We talk about the place of just, sitting down, a pat on the back, of course, with respect to gender and everything. And, that kind of sets the mood for the day. Again, these are some of the concerns that, the remote talent management poses to us. Employee engagement, we can go on and on and on, but I'm not going to sweat it. The reality is that there is need to manage talent so that your employees are engaged, remote talent. But guess what, guys? I'm going to leave this a rhetorical question in the room. Do you honestly think the employees who sit with you in the office are engaged and motivated? Food for thoughts. And then finally, I'll go to the differences bit. I've spoken about that, and of course, time zones. Gosh, time zones. I'll tell you about the time, 2019. I was working with some of my colleagues in Latin America. For those of you who know, should I say their morning is our evening? So I found that there were times I had to do meetings from 4 till 8 if they were long meetings. It was periodic. I politely asked to have reconsideration. Now I have colleagues who are closing when I'm resuming. So again, I look at the time difference, and that's why you have Teams and so many other gadgets that tell you whether it's daytime or nighttime in their places. And of course, it also helps you to plan your work in advance, so that, I mean, if you're closing and they're waking up, they can get your message and you're still able to deliver, results in time. So we are truly working in diverse work environments, and there are issues to address around cultural and time zone differences to ensure that we have effective collaboration. However, in my view, and of course, many schools of thought agree that the benefits far outweigh the challenges we discussed. So let's talk about the access to a global talent pool. There was a particular role we were trying to recruit for a couple of years ago, and we were on it for over a year. And we did not have the resources here. Guys, let's call it what it is. The skill set was nowhere to be found in Nigeria. We had Nigerians who had the skill set, but they were not based here. And guess what? Nobody was ready to come home to earn the naira. We thought of giving should I say, contracts in other neighboring countries, but it just didn't work for us. And then again, I said a couple of years ago, so we went ready for the full remote workplace. But guess what? Now we successfully remote for the skill set. In fact, we have more than enough skill sets. And by the way, some are not even coming in at any point in time. They are working from wherever they are. And it helps us. I mean, the accessibility to global talent pool helps organizations to recruit and retain talent from anywhere in the world, ensuring access to diverse skills and expertise. No. Let me put it like this. I'm trying to be careful here. But I remember a couple of years ago, I met a colleague, and I mean, much younger, and I asked her, what course did you study? I mean, we're in HR together, and we're talking about, the diverse team we were in the room. I mean, in terms of skin color, in terms of background, in terms of age. I mean, it was just a very diverse room, but very inclusive, by the way. And we're having a good chat over lunch. And I asked this young lady, I said, what course did you study? And she said, HR engineering. I asked the second time, what course did you? I thought I didn't hear well, but again, she didn't stutter. She said HR engineering, and I told myself, oh gosh, I'm getting old. But of course, I didn't say that out loud. But what I'm trying to say is, and by the time we were done with the 2 weeks training and the UAT workshop we were having, I could understand what HR engineering was. And by the way, when I say I could understand the value it brought to the table. And we've got HR tech. We've got all sort of HR courses out there. The reality is that as much as we don't have these courses in our curriculum, we have talent who are going out to acquire these skills. And we can get them to bring them in without physically coming in, especially with the inflation rate and all. And guys, remember I said I'm going to bear it all. So I'm going to be as polite as possible, but we have to address our situation. Let's talk about cost. I told you the example about the technician who did the training remotely. I mean, fixed the machine remotely just through a call and all. And for some of our organizations, we are having to reduce the office space we use, which means less money on rent or lease. And the whole overheads are reducing. As HR professionals, we have a responsibility to ensure that we deliver commercially, we deliver in terms of talent. We are not just people managers, we are not just people, we are business leaders, commercial centric. So our overheads also reduce, and we can contribute significant savings to organizations. And if you look at productivity, I mean, you can argue for or against, but I'll start with this. For a truly mature team, and for line managers, and we'll talk about how to equip our teams, by the way. But for a truly mature team, the reality is that there are many remote employees reporting higher productivity. You saw some of the stats I showed you. Go and check, speak with people. Yes, you're going to have some outliers. Let's call it what it is. But the whole idea of even spending less time in traffic, less time commuting, and having a personalized work environment, I mean, makes all the difference. I mean, the ability to wake up from your room or anywhere and just decide, okay, I'm going to wake up 15 minutes to this call or 15 minutes to this, to my start of day. I mean, depending on what your morning routine is. And by the way, this is remote working at work right now, because now I'm working from my sitting room at 7:50 p.m. here. And I mean, I'm not worried about, oh goodness, I have to dash back home from the office because that's the only place where you have connection. I'm just giving you a very simple example. And of course, that leads us to work-life balance. I was speaking with a friend of mine. She lives where, I mean, should I say, luckily for her, when she's done with work, she still gets to hang out with her friends and her family for dinners. They still get to celebrate, because guess what? She's not traveling the 2 hours or 1 hour to get back home, which usually left her with nothing, no strength, no joy, and no time to do anything. But guess what? Because she's working remotely, she can commute easily. And that means I'll just drop her laptop once it's time and then go for whatever it is she wants to do and still come back. So it contributes to improved job satisfaction and employee well-being. And of course, there's the environmental impact. We talk a lot about sustainability. We talk about our carbon footprints. Imagine if I don't have to drive my car 3 days a week. That means I'm reducing my carbon footprints. That means energy is less. You might say yes, but you're burning the energy at home. But again, we can discuss for or against. And of course, the whole idea is, where do we find the balance? And that is the importance of remote talent management. Where do we find the balance between these challenges and also these benefits we've spoken about? That is the essential tool for success when it comes to remote talent management. And it allows organizations to harness the advantages of remote work while mitigating the potential drawbacks. And of course, this brings us to that, should I say, gospel: strategic remote talent management. And remember, I've already set the context. I've already set the background. You might be wondering what she's talking about, remote work, whatever. We spoke about talent management, but this is to open our eyes and expose us to exactly what we're dealing with. And then you can have a strategy in place. Now, as I speak about strategic remote talent management, I'll put a caveat here. Many organizations say different things. Different scholars have differences in opinion as to what strategic remote talent management means. However, 6 key things are identical to all parties, and they are the things that I've said here. There are others, you call them different names, but they all fall under this. Because guess what? 2023 has brought with it a changed world of work, just like some of the preceding years. I mentioned that the pandemic has propelled digital transformation 4 years into the future than we planned, and a number of organizations were not ready. However, guess what, guys? The employee-employer relationship has changed. Maybe I should say it again. The employee-employer relationship has transformed significantly. And although at HR we are leading the change and we are managing the crisis in the past years, we run the risk of missing the boat. The boat is still, for some of us, it's still sailing. Some it has sailed, but we run the risk of missing the boat on this fundamental shift in how we work. You have to think about your processes. You have to think about your policies. I mean, we can go on and on. You have to think about your tools. You have to think about your ways of working. We believe that 2023 is HR's window of opportunity to reposition the function's value proposition in this post-pandemic era. HR professionals have a significant role to play. We have been playing it. And kudos to us, but we still have a significant role to play in guiding organizations through this storm. The reality is that we also have the subsequent inflation surge affecting us. There's economic slowdown. You can call it meltdown. The reality is that HR has a big job, has a tremendous impact on organizations. Of course, I would add the caveat if adequately enabled. So the news is this, for those of us who do not know. Many companies have embraced strategic remote talent management to maximize the potential of their workforce. And many companies are playing catch up, and many companies still have some work to do. The reality is that even if your fundamental let's say processes and policies do not necessarily mean that you have a remote workforce, you will find that you are relating with companies that work remotely. One way or the other, it impacts you directly or indirectly. And these key strategies, these two key elements is essential for maximizing potentials of key remote employees. We've spoken a lot about what talent management is. We have spoken a lot about what remote work is. The question is, how do you marry this and ensure that you have the right balance? And that's what we're talking about here. When we look, you for those of you, and I'll say us, who do a lot of consumption, who are very curious. So beyond what's happening in our space, our reality, we're also checking what's happening on AI, HR. Yeah. You remember that word AI? What's happening? And when you look at Gartner, you look at a number of HBR. Sorry, I'll try not to use abbreviations. Harvard Business Review. You look at AI HR. That's Academy to Innovate in HR. One thing should I say one thing resonates? HR professionals are reporting burnout. And if you ask me, what is the issue? A number of us say we are changing, say we are leading our companies to change, but we are truly not changing. However, companies realize and employees realize that remote talent management is fundamental to their change. And with this comes, in terms of your processes and your technology, you're talking about automation, you're talking about having that digital DNA. In terms of your acquisition, you will see at the bedrock of this, and maybe I should have put that there, is what we call the digital DNA technology. Companies are repositioning their EVPs, a lot of focus on total well-being to tackle burnout. There is a lot of review of the SLAs, strategic leadership agenda. I said I would try not to use abbreviations. It's quite difficult. But the reality is that companies are repositioning themselves and creating purpose-driven missions to ensure that they bring people and attract them. Because guess what? For somebody who wants flexi work, for somebody who wants to work remotely, and you are still saying the same, oh, this is our mission, this is our vision, and you are still saying the same old thing, they're not going to come to you. Inclusion, we hear it. We went from diversity and inclusion to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I'm hearing all sorts of names. But the reality is that inclusion is now a key fundamental in the employee life cycle. So talent management for remote employees is a different ballgame entirely. There is increased investments in deskless workers. So if you're going to boost retention, you can't be buying buildings, in quotes. You can't be building offices. You should be building capabilities. You should understand and listen. We need a listening HR that knows the needs and wants of the people. The reality is that we're not going to have it all. We can't give it all. We can't have it all. But start from somewhere. We need to reshape the way the workplace learning. And I'm talking, guys, by the way, I'm already into the strategies of talent management. We'll speak a bit more, but I'm just, kind of giving a kind of overview. For skill set, if you're still looking for the same skills that you were looking for 5, 6 years ago, then you need to have take a break, revisit your plans, revisit your company strategy, and then come back to the table. Why do I say this? You should be gathering, you should be conducting a new skills set analysis. I'm trying to keep the words very simple here. You should be having a diagnostic approach to what skills do you really need, redefining the skill set, the capabilities you need as an organization, and then be thinking about and reinventing your learning approaches to close the gap. And by this, what do I mean? Classroom trainings are super good. Trust me, there is a place for them and there will always be a place for them. But also, the same way we have gathered here today remotely, we need to start reinventing our practices, our learning approaches. What kind of tools, what kind of platforms, what kind of systems are you providing to your workplace so that people can learn in bite size and learn on the go? You need to shape the thinking of your business leaders to invest. Yes, I know that at times it may be difficult, it may be daunting, but it's something that needs to be done. You need to redefine your policies. What are your flexi work policies? Are they future proof? You need to help and when I say you, I'm also talking about myself. As HR, we need to help our organization stay alive, remain competitive. We share, I spoke briefly about competitive advantage. How do we manage our ecosystem? How do we ensure that, you know, performance management is no longer, I want to see you sit in front of me and let's talk here. Let's tick the box. Oh yeah, where's the list and everything? It's now about how do you refocus expectations versus the company results. So you need to expand the HR scope. We need to expand the HR scope to include the contingent workforce. And that creates a better work experience for all. There's this initiative. If time permitted, I would have loved to speak a bit about it. But there's what we call the modern employee experience, which we do at my workplace now. And this is about how do we reposition, how do we redefine the life cycle of an employee from end to end to make it worth the while. Is it going to be perfect? No. But we cannot be seen not to be making change or influencing change. We talk a lot about metaverse, HR. We talk about AI, HR. We need to create productive, collaborative, and creative workplaces. So if you are an HR personnel, you need to be curious. What's going on with metaverse? What's going on with AI? What tools are there out there? I'm not saying just jump in and it's like a kid in a candy shop. There's so much, but look for what is useful to you and bring it on board. What do you do with data? Do you connect the data from your recruitment data to your retention data to your offboarding data? Do you make meaningful decisions from it? We need to know how to leverage technology. And the truth is, not all of us are going to go and do HR tech, but bring those skill sets to your team so that you can reduce bias, so that you can reduce errors, so you can forecast your workforce for the future and augment decision making. And that takes away the administrative and the operational burden. And then you can free up your head to be more strategic. Our role has changed, it's evolved. Just like technology has evolved, our role has evolved. And I remember somebody was saying something like, oh, in a couple of years, the jobs, technology is going to take away our jobs. And I remember I was discussing with one of my team members, with Gen Z to the core. And we were doing a research. I can't remember the stats now, but I said it should take away some of the traditional jobs, But guess what? Technology is going to create more jobs, actually more jobs than what we have now. The question is, where are you? How do you tap into this? And if you do not get curious and you do not learn and you do not know, how do you become a trusted advisor? And most of HR people, we tend to complain about how we do not have a seat at the table. I like to tell my colleagues, I like to tell my team, you need to pull that seat at your table yourself. Nobody's going to pull the seat for you. If you're lucky, maybe somebody will. But how do you sit? How do you grab their attention? How do you upskill your managers? Are you still rolling out the same training calendar you've been using for a while? Even the I was discussing with our skills development manager, and we were talking about, the strategy for this year. And he said, oh, our strategy last year was amazing. We delivered fantastic results. We were applauded. But guess what? That strategy doesn't work this year anymore. Some parts of it, yeah. But now we need to start thinking 4 years ahead. What are the skill sets we need? We spoke about that. How do we put ourselves there? So, I wouldn't take too much of our time, but one of our responsibilities as a business is that we need to set clear expectations in terms of exactly how we're going to recruit. I was chatting with the lady on LinkedIn. I do not know her from anywhere, and we're talking about something, and then she put up a survey, and that survey spoke about how you do talent acquisition. And I asked, I responded to the survey. She thanked me for responding to the survey, and we got chatting. This did not take more than how many minutes. Some of us prefer to spend those minutes on Instagram watching people dancing and everything. It's good. And don't get me wrong. But remember to always look for opportunities to learn more. And we spoke about, okay, so how do these tools work for talent acquisition and everything? It doesn't mean I'm going to take everything to my organization or to the organization I work for. But the reality is that you can learn and know how to influence. I speak to ex-colleagues. As HR, I don't fight my, should I say, former colleagues. The colleagues who have left the business. I'm going to leave someday. I speak with them. I keep in touch with them. I build bridges. And I asked one of them that left not too long ago. I said, tell me, how's your new place? Oh, and she spoke so beautifully about it. Tell me about your talent, the recruitment process. Tell me about it. What do you, when you compare it to when you were in BAT back then, when you came into BAT, what do you love most? And she told me about the asynchronous interview, which we are now doing, by the way. But I'm talking about that. She told me, she said, I love the fact that I could record my responses. So I did, because again, I was never, so I could relax and record my responses on video. I even had the opportunity to delete it twice. I think that, yeah. And that way I was relaxed and I could showcase my true potentials. I mean, some of us might say, but what if candidates go and read? If they read it, if you put your questions well, you know what you're looking for. If you craft your questions correctly, the incidence of error will be minimal. And she said she recorded it, and I was wild back then. I was like, oh, tell me more. And I was able to raise my hands to the business to say, hey, are we doing any talent acquisition, whatever? And there are tools. How many of you know that there are tools on platforms like LinkedIn? I know I said I want to mention brands, but there are some tools that help you with searching CVs. So you're not sitting down and reading CVs and instead of doing creative things. There are tools, and these things don't cost an arm and a leg. So you need to start thinking about, how do you attract your talent? How are you making use of the same social media, the same TikTok, Instagram, and all to get the right talent? Because remember, the talent you're looking for is remote. How are you sending your message? How are you positioning your EVP? Also, when you talk about evaluation, I spoke about it very briefly. Most people come into your office. Of course, if they're running machines, definitely they need to come in. But if they do not need to come in, why bring them in? Are you looking for good case studies to evaluate remote candidates? Are those case studies still the traditional old ones, or are they speaking to the skill sets you need now? Again, when it comes to onboarding, oh, this is a very, should I say, sweet spot for me. How flexible and how versatile is your onboarding process? Have you started thinking of including virtual introductions, training, access? I was speaking to one of one of the employees recently, who joined HR not too long ago, and she was telling me one of the things she loved most about joining us, and that was that she had access to start her onboarding weeks before. So she had the opportunity to sit in the comfort of her home or wherever she was, to learn about the company, to know about the people and all. So we need to start thinking of the access to essential tools. Also, let's speak a bit about building. I spoke about this not too long ago. We need to start thinking of platforms that, that can give access to podcasts. And by the way, there's no specialist skill to create podcasts. I mean, you can find them on all these remote work sites if you don't know how to do them. And YouTube is there also. So the reality is that you need to start empowering yourself to ensure that when it comes to learning, when it comes to development, I love to call it capability building. You need to be able to give people the opportunity, because you can't bring, I mean, imagine the cost of flying employees from excuse me, from all over the world, with especially with the cost of cost of etiquettes now, flying people for training when they can do it remotely, where you can actually, I mean, there are so many team building activities you can do remotely, so many icebreakers that you all have a good laugh, you relax and you learn. I mean, people are having access to devices on their phones to learn the way we are doing now. I know some of you are not joining from your laptops, oh no, from your phones. So let's start creating that opportunity. And this is part of what strategic remote talent management is about, guys. It's not rocket science. Today's world of work has evolved and it is still evolving. I mean, at times it's scary, but at times it's also exhilarating. So remote talent acquisition has become a strategic imperative for organizations looking to harness the global workforce. You want global skills? You want fantastic skills? You want to have a competitive edge? Then you had better start looking at remote talent acquisition, because it explores the different. I mean, some of you think talent acquisition is only hiring. It's about how do you position yourself? How are you reaching your remote audience? How are you evaluating your candidates remotely? And effectively still, you cannot compromise the quality. And how are you implementing onboarding strategies that are tailored for remote hires? So that way they can still connect to your business mission and vision, your aspirations, without necessarily coming in. Recently, my colleagues and I, we were talking about some of the onboarding. Apart from learning about the organization, we're talking about how do we onboard, with all the credentials and all the manual stuff in Nigeria. And we sat down, young people, I mean, different age range, and we found that, look, we could also automate all the paper stuff, and we made it fully, I mean, it was partially automated, but now our onboarding is fully automated. You don't have to start typing or printing the paper to fill this, everything. Check, check, and then of course there's autocorrect. So it even makes it less painful. It's about how do you make people want to be a part of your organization? How do you showcase your company culture to top talent so that they want to join you remotely? I mean, I remember an organization, I don't want to call the name, they did a work with us page, and they incorporated a virtual tour of their remote work culture. I mean, we do that also, by the way. I mean, you can have a virtual tour of our factory, a virtual tour of our market. We call it virtual market visit. So you actually go to Okearing with us virtually. So you see our products, you meet some of our customers. And look, there are drones. There are so many things you can use. Technology is so, I mean, it's everywhere. You just need to decide what you want. And this is how you begin to make those, should I say, key changes, those strategic changes in your organization. We spoke about asynchronous video interviews. And by the way, your onboarding portal, if they don't want to, I mean, if you feel the candidates will not learn, then put a test or a short quiz at the end. When you do LinkedIn trainings, you see there, a quiz, intermittent quiz, to ensure that you are listening. They get to know some of your buzzwords before they join in. We do mentoring online now. I mean, I've had a mentor now for 3 years. I've never met him. I've never met him. But he's the most amazing mentor I've had ever. I've never met him. So you need to start looking at what are the portals that are available. It doesn't mean you should now have a cocktail of portals, everything, everywhere. No, look at what is relevant for your organization. And then let's talk a bit about building, about performance management. Now, this is very dear to my heart. Why? Because if anybody is going to join your organization, they need to have clear expectations. They're going to join your team. You need to put in place very clear expectations. And you don't have to see each other to do that, especially depending on kind of work. Use good leverage on good tools on technology to put your KPIs, to be able to track and monitor. So everybody can, so we upload our performance objectives, which is also known as KPIs in some organizations. So you can put them up. And then, I mean, technology is so advanced that you can even track how it's going. We've got Kanban boards. There's so much you can do. HR needs to be agile. It is not negotiable. It is no longer a buzzword. HR should be agile HR. It's no longer about, oh, have you done agile? No, it's about the mindset, the skill set. Again, in terms of performance monitoring, there are data-driven tools to monitor remote employee performance. Recently, a couple of weeks ago, I was reading about a case in UK where an employee sued the employers for wrongful termination. And the employer was able to, it was a very fascinating case. But just to summarize the outcome, when the case was heard, the employer was able to use technology to prove that the employee was not truly working. So what was happening was that the employee kept something on the keyboard to make it look like, because again, you have this tool also, and many employees are aware that you have this tool, this technology tool that measures whether you're online or not. And then what happened? This employee put something on the keyboard or whatever, and it was showing like the person was typing, and the employer was able to prove that. It was not humanly possible to be typing continuously for 8 hours a day. So, and then of course they also looked at the deliverables. Remember, I set key performance indicators, and be very clear on your measures of success. And that was how the company won the case against the employee. So you need to have performance monitoring tools, and there's still the place for the traditional talent management in terms of feedback. Feedback is not negotiable. Line managers need to use what we call the Outlook calendar or whatever platform you use to set meetings and have periodic feedback. Some instantaneous, as the job is being done, you give the feedback, and then some it can be done later, when you're doing your periodic check-ins and all. So performance reviews must be regular, more than ever. They must be regular. And it has to be similar to the in-office performance review. You set the goals, you assess the progress, and of course you prioritize, more than anything, prioritize outcomes over hours worked. So it's not about, oh, did I check in? Yes. It is about, did you get the job done? And then, by the way, I remember when we when COVID, during the pandemic. Oh, I nearly died of meetings because there was the daily everybody put on your camera, and we all know some of the incidents or the accidents that happened with cameras on, videos on, and But again, that's not what we're talking about. But the reality is that you need to have healthy, and when I say healthy, healthy doses of check-ins. Have your team calls, have your one-on-ones, address concerns real time, provide support, and ensure that you maintain a clear and strong employer-employee relationship. Just to move on, let's go to tools and technologies. We have said a lot about this, a lot. So I'm not going to dwell too much on it, but more than anything, I think for me, this is the bedrock of remote working, the tools and the technology. This one, remote talent management relies heavily on the strategic use of technology for the end-to-end life cycle of an employee. And that means to attract, you need technology; to nurture, to maximize the potential of remote employees, you need technology. It explores the key aspects, what we're discussing now, of how you can leverage technology, leverage software, leverage collaboration tools, and of course, consider the vital security and privacy concerns, because you cannot isolate that. So in the dynamic world of remote work, there are specialized softwares. And by the way, you can also upskill your team members to actually build capability so that you don't have to pay for some of them. So find out. There are some people who know how to build apps. I mean, we've got an academy of Power BI users who can build simple visitors forms and things. So you have a kind of, should I say, repository of these tools, and then you don't have to be paying for them if you're worried about it. Build your talent, develop capabilities, because they are very, these tools, these softwares are very pivotal to efficient communication. They're pivotal to task management. I mean, we all use all sort of softwares, but the bottom line is you need them, and overall they improve workforce productivity. I mean, we have communication platforms. You don't have to use what everybody is using. Use what works for you. There are some that are very small. I mean, okay for small, medium, organizations, and there are some that scaled up. We are using Zoom now. I remember that there's actually the Zoom bit, there's the Zoom package that is just, it's free, gives you limited people. While you can extend it even to, you can extend your package or whatever it's called to have real time, I mean, audience, large audience and all. So we've got tools like Microsoft Teams. I remember so many years back, Microsoft Teams, external people couldn't join. I remember so many years back, but now, you can have meetings, you can have virtual meetings, and that way you bridge the geographical distances. There are also project management tools. I keep saying it, we have I mean, we use different tools like the Kanban board, which is on Teams also. You can use it to manage your project so people don't have to be calling, they can real time update how they are tracking, and it enhances team collaboration. I spoke about time tracking, I spoke about productivity tools. So if you are worried that people will not do their jobs, once you have set the right KPIs, clear KPIs, and again, key performance indicators, you have set the right measures of success. Then if you have if you can afford it, put in place some time tracking devices to monitor work hours. And by the way, for your information, Microsoft also does it. If you only need to find out from your IT team on how to use it, and it tells you how much collaboration time did you spend, how much time did you, I mean, I like to read my report from time to time because it automatically comes to me. It tells me how much time I spent on one-on-ones. It tells me how much time I spent in meetings. It tells me how much time I worked on my own and everything, and it kind of gives you up not just the insights, but it also gives recommendations to boost your productivity. And for those people who don't want to work, your team members, you can use it if you think you need to track them. So we need to leverage collaboration tools. I mean, some of us have SharePoints, 360, you have Microsoft 365, 360, whatever, real-time document collaboration and sharing. There's Google Workspace. So there are so many cloud-based tools that we can use. So you don't have to worry about, how do I get this document to this person, or, collaborate. I mean, remote working is a bit of a headache. No, there's so many there's also brainstorming tools. One of my favorites is the whiteboard, the virtual whiteboard. I mean, some call it Miro, some call it Miro. I love it because you can write, you can actually write, you can type, you can paste pictures. I mean, we do a lot of team bonding virtually. And when it comes to security, again, I mean, of course, you should have your policies in terms of um, how do employees, where they can take their laptops to, where they can't take them to. I mean, different organizations, just to safeguard sensitive data. And I'll speak about data now in terms of tools and technologies, and then we'll speak briefly about the legal bit as we round up. So, I mean, there are so many secure VPNs. There are so many multi-level authentication tools to help protect. I mean, invest in these things. The data encryption. I know that if I had to send sensitive files, because again, they're no longer the bit of I want to talk to someone. I can't discuss this on Teams. I can't whatever. I need to send a sensitive file. You know how to encrypt it to make sure that end to end is encrypted and it can be forwarded. I mean, there's the possibility of clicking a mail to say not to be forwarded, and it won't be forwarded. The most important thing is that we need to adopt and optimize these tools. We need to adopt technology and optimize it for remote talent management. You need to find out what works for your organization depending on the size of your organization. You can start small and scale up. But the most important thing is that you need to streamline your operations. You need to enhance collaboration, and you need to maintain the security and privacy of sensitive information. These tools empower remote teams to thrive in this ever-evolving remote work landscape. And if let's move on quickly. I'll speak first about the legal governance framework before I talk about the final one, which is, I mean, of course, I know remote friendly work culture, and we can go on and on, but let's speak first about the legal and compliance framework. So I was speaking to a friend of mine, and she was telling, and we were talking about, can you work from any country? And she said no. She works with a bank. She works with a bank in the UK. And I do understand. I mean, the data has to be rock solid. And then, of course, you also have to understand that each country had its own legal and compliance requirements. And so she said, "Oh no, I can't. I can work remotely only within UK, but I cannot leave UK and work remotely." She said once that they found that one of her colleagues logged in remotely and they had to call, okay, do you know what? Just stay where you are, but don't log in again. Don't log in until you're back in the country and all. And this was even during the COVID era and all. But the most important thing is that even as we embrace remote work, as we manage talent remotely, we definitely need to know how to navigate the complex landscape of legal and compliance requirements. There are some countries that have, and I'm not a legal practitioner, by the way, but by virtue of some of the incidents that have happened recently in terms of remote working, we like to call it location agnostic roles. We've had to consult, tax authorities and the legal authorities to ensure that we are not breaching any, should I say, international, should I say, complexity, landscape, or rules. So it's very important that as we consider, remote talent management, as you put in place your policies and all, you must consider the essential impact of remote working and remote talent management. You need to know the regulations, the data privacy regulations, the security. Know which one I mean, which one are you answerable to, and also be sure that you are not breaching anyone, because again, employment laws are sacrosanct in different organizations, in different places. So as you navigate this remote talent management, you also have to navigate the remote world of regulations. It's very vital to ensure that you comply with whatever local, state, or international laws there are. So for instance, I mentioned the one about taxation and employment laws. So you have to know what are the tax obligations. Someone was telling me about the fact that if you work in a particular country, so I'm talking about Nigeria and another country. So someone had the employment contract was in Nigeria, and was supposed to and wanted to work remotely from home, because I mean it was permitted. And we consulted our should I say our the tax authorities and our tax and business partners, and they told us that, look, yes, the individual could go work from the other country in Africa. However, in that country, he would need to pay a certain tax for working remotely. And so we had to sit and agree that, look, we are compelled, we are bound to pay, to fulfill the tax obligations and labor laws here in Nigeria. However, since you have chosen to go work in your country remotely, then you should know that you will be liable for the tax obligations there. And those are the kind of conversations you need to have. Those are the kind of policies you need to start putting in place in terms of remote talent management, to ensure that your remote work policies are comprehensive and they are aligned with legal requirements and employee rights. Because when you tell people upfront, that way they can make sound decisions, so that you don't find a situation where both you and the employees are at loggerheads because of the tax laws. We spoke about data privacy, but I'm going to just reinforce that message, because again, different countries have emphasis on the data laws in their land. So we have to be sure that this country, any country where a remote talent is working, you are very clear on what the rules are, what the data protection regulations are, such as the GDPR in Europe. You need to be sure. In some, it's about healthcare. So depending on your industry, depending on the country, you need to be very clear what the compliance regulations are to ensure that you do not breach anything. It is the responsibility of the CEO, the chief finance officer, and in fact everyone to ensure that we abide and we adhere to those data rules. So if you breach it in some countries, so for instance, the data law in UK, we are bound by it even though we work here in Nigeria. So you have to be very clear what your responsibilities are as an organization. You need to do your homework and be sure that you are managing that talent you are managing remotely, or that employee you are managing remotely is safe, and you are also safe. There are also employment laws. There are wage and hour laws in some lands. So my question is, so let's just, and this again, another rhetorical question. Imagine that you give an employee, so you give me a contract in Nigeria, and then I decide to go live in a land or in a country where the work hours are different. So maybe they are not supposed to do 8 hours like we do here. Maybe in that country, there's overtime to be paid if you work more than a certain number of hours. And then, there's also the minimum wage. So you need to be very clear. It's one of our responsibilities as HR to have those conversations and know what you are, because you can't say, oh, well, you chose to go and work there. So, I foresee a future where employees are going to start suing employers based on factors like this. So you have to be sure what the employee rights are in different countries, in different working environments, to ensure that you have a safe working space. So navigating these legal and compliance considerations crucial to mitigate risks and maintain a successful remote work strategy. And this needs thorough understanding and proactive adaptation to evolving legal landscape. Remember, everybody's changing, everything is changing. So not just HR, it's not just your talent management. So if you have to make sure that even your remote workforce operates within the boundaries of the law. Finally, let's talk about my favorite topic here, remote friendly culture. I mean, we said a lot today. We've spoken about the tools, we've spoken about hiring people. How do you make them stay? We've talked about building capabilities. Now let's talk about the culture. I mean, we can go on and on about all the sayings of culture and strategy, but your strategy is nothing without your culture. So for remote talent management, you need to have a remote friendly culture. So you have to create one that just does not respond to the changes. The landscape is changing, so you are now running after and trying to make your culture whatever. It is very important that organizations thrive in this evolving world. So let's speak very briefly about how to foster a very collaborative culture, one in which communication is clear, one in which employee morale is maintained from afar off, and one that ensures inclusivity despite remote working. It sounds very straightforward, but it's not that easy. Imagine you have a report here and you have another one in another country, different work hours, maybe 2 hours ahead of you. Let's even look at those that are just kind of, close by. How do you ensure that the individual at the other end does not feel left out? Do you start having conversations in the room even when the meeting has started while ignoring the person on the other call? So we spoke about tools. You have to use those tools and use them well. If you're on a Teams call, and let's talk about this one a bit, and I'm going to be very open and transparent here. So I'm one of those people, even though I work remotely, I do not particularly enjoy having my video on sometimes. I just want to have the conversation and everything. But one of the things I realized over time is that we all have we have the responsibility, especially if it's a one-on-one call or just a small cohort, to ensure that we make sure that the other person at the other end of the room feels like you are listening, feels like you are connected, It's a two-way street. So you have to try. Please try. Remove all the distractions from your background, and you can use the blurred background and try to put on your video. And I'm speaking to myself to book it. Try to put on your video regularly. I try to do it. I was chatting with a colleague, just was it yesterday, and she said, "Oh, Bookie, I love your lashes, and I love you're looking really dolled up, and you're working from home." So now this is state secret. For those of you who use Microsoft Teams, go and check. I love that tool now. So if anybody is working for Microsoft here, please tell them I love the tool so much now, because guess what? For those of us who at times when we're working from home, we are not so into the makeup, the look good factor. Guess what? They now have a pad. I mean, and that's why I said be curious, by the way. There are now some elements. So at times I just check settings, I check effects. So you can actually create your own avatar. You can decide to use Snapchat as part of a Snapchat effect for your video. You can even use them. What's the other one again? It's not coming to me, but I'll remember. That was the one I tested yesterday. And guess what? It mildly made up my face. So if you're on this call and you know that times you look like you just walked out of your bedroom into a call, please consider using all those effects. So I was looking there. I mean, I was looking so pretty and lovely. Meanwhile, you turned off the video, and please don't sue me for for how do you say it, for representing myself, or for falsehood. Let me put it like that. But the bottom line of what I'm trying to say is, try to be present, and presence is not only about listening and say please try to turn on your video, try to remove distractions. And that's why I told you at the beginning, I'll speak from the side of the HR person, and I also speak from the side of the employee. So we have to ensure that to drive collaboration, we also need to step forward and ensure that it is a truly engaging relationship, because that's the way you boost morale. I remember a particular person was training us virtually, and he appealed to us at the start of the call. He said, please, I know, right? Some of you are very professional up here and very, homebound down there. But please just try to be decent and turn on your videos. Try to respond. Give me some of the thumbs up on the screen, use the emos and everything, so that way you are connecting. Also, please check online, research, speak to people. Some of us are in some WhatsApp groups, HR WhatsApp groups. Ask if you don't know how to get virtual team building activities. You need to be able to learn how to do virtual team building. There's some trivias. I know a group, they were telling me about they jointly watched a movie. I'm still curious about it. And they discussed it, and the room was alive. Why? Because they organized a virtual team movie night. And all this is meant to boost morale, make people feel connected, and strengthen the team bonds. Because guess what? We always say it, when it comes to effective team building or effective high performing teams, there is a place for rapport. You have to build rapport. I'm going to talk about something also that is very dear to my heart. When we talk about building a culture, a remote friendly culture, it's about recognition and appreciation. Again, for those of you who use Microsoft Teams, there is what you call the real-time thank you. And you know what? For those of us that might feel a bit lazy about typing, it literally it gives you how do you say it? Default things you can say. Just click the one you like and just add whatever you want to add. So as people are working, I love to use my GIF. So if you're doing something when you're training, I love to use the GIF to, again, it builds a lot of energy. So we don't have to be in the room, hailing and everything. I mean, when my husband is watching football, I call him the armchair coach. He's guys move, and he's controlling everything happening on the pitch from home. I mean, for those of you who watched the Man U match today, he was so agitated that I was like, that laptop is going to explode at this rate, because the stadium was literally bursting through the laptop. He was also literally screaming on the stage. The bottom line is, these tools, this laptop, these connections, these platforms, they are gold. Use them. Appreciate your teams. celebrate achievements, celebrate milestones. You must learn to do it more, especially now that you're not going to be seeing the people say, oh, thank you, well done. Say it. Send a note. Well done. That was fantastic. Use the GIF. Use so many things. There are so many things, pictures, emails. Hey, thumbs up, whatever. Use the digital recognition platforms if your company does not have a specialized one. I'm going to round up now. And of course, remember again, regular check-ins. Don't ignore how people feel. Be sure they are all right. Make sure your policies are very inclusive. Your meetings are inclusive. We have what we call the no meeting zone. So which means 1 hour before, 1 hour after our regular work time, so that it allows room for all of us to try to find a way to fit into regular work hours, irrespective of our zones. Use technology. Remember those with disabilities, and give regular feedback. By focusing on these aspects, organizations can build a remote-friendly culture that not only adapts to the changing work landscape, but also makes it thrive. And remember, a culture rooted in collaboration, morale, and inclusivity fosters a sense of belonging and drives success in a distributed work environment. And on a final note, I remember telling Luyemi that I think 1 hour was just too long, but here I am, almost 2 hours after. So I'm going to round up now, so that you can enjoy whatever is left of your day. But I'm going to leave you with a few parting words. I've shared some of my learnings with you. I've shared some of my mistakes with you. And vulnerability is one of the, should I say, bedrock of leadership. Listen to other people, think about some things you've done right and wrong, and learn from it. But if I'm going to conclude, as HR professionals, as business leaders, we have the responsibility to assess the organizations in which we work. You need to assess it. If you know where you are in the scheme of things, so that you have an understanding of your remote landscape and what it means for you in terms of talent management, be it recruiting, developing, or retaining your human assets. And prioritize strategic remote talent management. You need to prioritize it depending on where you are in the journey, so that you can unlock the full potential of your remote workforce. Invest in clear communication, invest in training and development, invest in technology, support employee well-being, and foster a cohesive remote culture. Look, the time is now. If you've not already started the journey, but the time is now to build a globally connected, agile, and productive team. If you remember nothing, remember that irrespective of its form, whether virtual or on-site, talent management is simply the anticipation of an organization's human capital needs and establishing an end-to-end strategy to meet it, whether it's remote or whether it's real. Because this is how companies showcase their competitive advantage. This is how they succeed. And this is how they ensure that their workforce is satisfied and they stay and they thrive. It is everyone's responsibility, guys. And that's why you also need to bring your line managers on board. You need to bring your teams on board. You need to bring the reports on board. It is everyone's responsibility to manage talent, including the talent themselves. So I'll say this, and I'll leave this with you. Seize the opportunities of remote work and lead your organization into a brighter future. Be curious and embrace the future of work. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for staying with me. And I would now hand over back to the convener. It's been a wonderful opportunity, and I thank you for giving me that pleasure to share with you. Thank you. I do not know if there are questions, but if there are, please feel free to ask. I'm going chat room now. I don't know if Oluyemi is still here, or I can just decide to see if there are any questions in the room. Thank you very much, Ali Ibrahim. I see you. Thank you. Thank you, Abisola Tejumola. Thank you, Beatrice, for this. Thank you, Bukunlu Adeboye Mfon. Thank you. I see you, Rabi Angeli. Rashida, thank you very much. And thank you for your time also. Oluyemi, your mic is muted in case you're speaking. Thank you, Joy Adamu. Adebimpe, thank you. Thank you, Bamdele Gold. Oluyemi, back to you, over to you, in case there are any questions.
Thank you so much, madam. That was excellent, world class. I like the fact that you refer to our charts when you said you had only limited time. You notice that I didn't argue. I just said okay. And this is the definition of okay. You could as well have done a whole day dishing out values and information. Thank you. God bless you. I know this is light for you. This is sacrificial. Thank you for your lightness of heart and magnanimity. Folashade Adeniji, you would like to say something? And you have the floor. You can unmute Folashade. If you have any quick question or quick comment or contribution, raise your hands. We'll take like 2 or 3. Go ahead, Folashade.
I have a question. I just like to help us go over how to track attendance of remote workers.
How to track attendance of remote workers?
Yes.
Okay.
How do we do that? So there's a company that does hybrid work. So sometimes they're in the office, but when they're not in the office, sometimes they can't be reached. So I don't know if our policy is good enough to cover that, or is there any tool that one can use?
Okay, it's okay. Your network is blurry, but I think we get the meat of your question. Buki, our question is, how do you track attendance of employees working remotely?
Okay. So I'm not an IT expert, right? But I had mentioned something that there's this tool. So I don't know the tools you use in your workplace, but there's this tool called Microsoft Viva. And that's the tool I was talking about earlier. I don't know what package you have in your workspace, but you need to look into that. And I can share with you offline or connect you with our IT person. But what you find is that it tells you how much time you spent online. So that means there is a way, there's a tool that checks how long you're online and whether you are being active online or you're quiet. And there are other productivity tools. I remember my friend, when I was speaking with him, he talked about Clockify. I've never used it, but it helps monitor work hours. It helps monitor if people are truly working. But I would say this, and please remember that I mentioned it at a point. I would say be careful not to be too into the work hours than into the results. If your KPIs are clear, if your measures of success are clear, then you are able to measure the results. And if the person can do everything, can do 10 days work in an hour, good luck to the person. You know what you set, you know what you have set in terms of objectives, and know whether the person has met them or not. But more than anything, there are different tools available. You can explore, speak to your IT department. If you want to reach out to me, I could link you up with our IT department and they can advise you on some of the tools you can use. But remember, it's more about the results than the actual tracking of time.
Okay, someone is asking in the chat box that can you shed more light on with respect to statutory remittance and compliance in other jurisdictions?
Okay, so I shared an example, Ademiola. I'm trying not to be too specific here, but I'm going to give you a live example. I'd already mentioned something. So one of our employees wanted to relocate to UK with her family, and wouldn't mind holding the role while she was there. We all know that role can be done remotely. But one of the things we did was to speak to our tax consultant to understand if there was going to be any liabilities on the side of the company and also the individual if the individual chose to earn here but work there. You know, we talk about tax income, we talk about pay as you earn, we talk about personal tax income. There are so many categories of taxes. And this is just taxation, by the way. There are so other legal, should I say legal policies or legal requirements or regulations that govern people, how they work and where they live. So by the time we did our homework, for one of the countries, we found that if you work remotely and you stay for more than 3 months, then you start paying a certain amount. And the individual looked at the amount she was supposed to pay versus what she was going to earn, and realized that it wasn't going to work for her. And because of that, we had a handshake. What I'm trying to say here is you need to find out, because it's relative to different countries. Some countries have agreements, they have labor agreements, they have similar labor laws. So it's important that you find out the region where the person is working, what are the tax laws there, and then make sure that more than anything, talk to the subject matter experts so that you're sure that you're not exposing your company at any point in time.
Thank you so much. We'll be taking the final question or comment from Segun Oladosu. You have the floor, please.
All right. Good evening. Good evening, sir. Good evening. Good evening, Ma. I want to appreciate you for this section. The question I have is, I just want you to shed light. I just want to be enlightened on this. I work as an L&D professional. I'm an L&D professional. I manage a certain region for my company, but in the region we have like 6 cities that we have outlets. So, and I have trainers in those outlets, which I manage them remotely. Then I do go there as well, travel down the places and all of that. So I just want to know, can that be termed as remote talent management? That's just my question. Thank you.
I'm going to answer in a very simple term. Yes. When we say remote talent management, you can be in different cities. And you can be in the same city, but you don't see each other in the office every day. So I can actually manage someone remotely in Lagos while I work in Lagos. So which means we don't come to the office every day. But usually but the person works from home. But so that's why I said one way or the other, a number of us actually practice remote. Once you have hybrid work and those kind of arrangements in your office, flexi work and all, you are more or less practicing remote talent management, and that's why this is critical for you. But more importantly, if you work in different cities, you don't see each other every day, you don't sit in the same office, certainly it's remote talent management, and everything we've spoken about today is applicable to you.
Thank you so much. This has been really expositive, insightful. We appreciate you, and would like to sincerely thank you for your time, for sharing with us your wisdom, insight, and experience. It has been really worth it. God bless you, ma. God bless your family. God enrich the work of your hand. Good night, everyone. Please, let's say thank you to our facilitator for tonight.
Thank you very much, Oluyemi.